Welcome back to the Winning Agenda's coverage of Melbourne Regionals 2015. This match we have Jeremy on the bottom of the screen on the Winning Agenda playmat playing Kate, and Wilfred Horig on the Games Laboratory playmat playing his HB IT Department control deck. Now, what kind of matchup is this going to be, Jesse, do you think?
Well, we've got most likely two control decks. Most Kate decks are generally control decks, except for some PPVP, prepaid voice pad variants that try to go a little bit faster. Wilfie's deck is definitely control deck, so we're probably going to see this going quite late. Wilfie tries very hard to prevent early scores as much as possible, and then force...
I think that's very important, especially in a double elimination situation where if you're playing a control deck and you're likely to go long, any points your opponent has at all can be detrimental.
Yeah, so we've seen on turn one there, he's got the classic opening where he's protecting both HQ and R&D, and he's got hedge fund. So
yeah,
shields up.
Start. Yeah, so I think Jeremy's taking a mulligan, so he might just be deciding on what he's going to do here.
It looks like he's got a bit of money. He's got 2 daily casts. So he might go credit and then double daily casts, which is not a bad start, but it sort of gives the corp a free turn.
Yeah, he's drawn, taking a credit. You might be right.
And then he's going double daily casts. See, I would have really liked to see Jeremy prodding those central servers.
Yeah, just to force him to res some cards early on. I mean, not sure what he could really be worried about when it comes to face checking on that turn one. Like, even if something like a Marcus, he's got nothing to trash. I don't think he needs to worry about Wilfie running anything really detrimental like a Kamainu.
Architect's the really big
I suppose
threat,
you could worry about Architect, yeah.
Even then, Wilfie's got to have an ice that he can't get through and an agenda, which is possible. So that's a fair thing to play around. But
yeah, and Wilfie's installed, drawn with Jackson, played a green level clearance, so he's seen quite a few cards, and Jeremy's got the professional contacts come down now. So that's a very strong start, especially now that he's got the 2 daily casts live as well.
So Jeremy's again given Wilfie on the turn here. So I would have liked, he may not know what sort of deck Wilfie's playing, but I would have liked him for that exact reason. Wilfie's played a restructure now. I would have liked to see him put a bit more pressure on Wilfie's economy early, because one of the things about this IT department deck is once he gets that remote set up and he feels comfortable that his centrals are safe, it's very difficult to get in.
Yeah, indeed it is. Now, Jeremy may not know that he's playing the IT department deck, and even people who do know that he's playing the IT department deck, I think, still have a little trouble playing against it. Like, I mean, what would your general strategy be against an IT department? You want to poke them to res their ice early, keep them low on economy so they can't play cards like Restructure and just stockpile a lot of credits. Is that the idea?
You want to be pressuring them early. You ideally want to be playing either David or Parasite. Those are the 2 strongest cards against the deck. Parasite because you can obviously clear away ice permanently, which negates the IT department wall that Wilfie's trying to create.
Once they have the IT department out, though, doesn't the Parasite become a bit
yes,
basic?
Yeah, it becomes a little bit worse, but the fact that you can clear away ice early, but also that you can just leave a Parasite there building up counters, so that he either has to purge or lose one of his ice once the Parasite naturally trashes. Yeah.
Looks like Jeremy's run the remote there as an executive boot camp, which he chose to trash. So it's probably a good idea then, because boot camp can fetch up the IT department.
It can fetch up the IT department, and it can also get Wilfie some very important economic savings while defending his centrals.
Yeah, exactly right. There's dirty laundry into archives, I think. Then he's maybe running the Jackson there.
And the thing about ice like Bastion and Data Pike that Wilfie's running.
Yeah. Would you trash the Jackson?
Yes. Yeah, I think that's always a good call now. It's tough because, again, he's gone reasonably low, but he's getting that double daily cast boost at the start of every turn, so it's not really too much of a tempo setback for him at this point.
Wolfie's just install gain with that HP identity. That's 3 credits every turn without sort of sacrificing any tempo.
So he's now sitting on 24 to Jeremy's 8. And Jeremy's got no programs in play. So he's going to really want to start developing his rig very soon and trying to actually get in and place some pressure.
Well, that's the issue, though, right? I mean, every click he spends running to make Wolfie res his ice is a click he's not spending developing his rig. But if he does develop his rig, then he's in a better spot for the later game. But then Wolfie's free to have as many credits and as many layers of ice as he can get in that time. So it's always a risky call, I think.
So ideally, this is where, as the Kate player, you want to be seeing yourself modifying codes so that your run clicks become a lot more efficient.
Yeah. We haven't seen really any console or any other pieces. That's Katie Jones. Okay. That's not a
Okay,
bad
so
piece of resource to have in this kind of matchup, I don't think.
well, it's not bad, but it's also not great. I mean, you're shortening your turns to give yourself one big turn, and whilst that can be good at a certain point against IT department, you don't want to leave
Yeah.
it too long because then
No.
your gain from Katie is just outmatched by what the
Yeah.
IT department's gaining. So
Yeah, a lot of people are still playing Katie Jones. I thought that she was probably not as good as she was, say, even 18 months ago.
well,
Just in a lot of sense.
she's definitely not as good as she was 18 months ago.
No.
There are a lot more economy options for
now,
runners now. Yeah.
So Wolfie's icing up the archives there. Do you think maybe he's worried about a parasite or data sucker?
He could
Or-
be. He could be quite worried about data sucker. I think one of the things I will say about Katie is that because there are a lot more ways to punish runs now from the corp and to punish face checking early, having something like Katie that allows you to gain significant economy passively is a lot better than it was a few months ago. So it's sort of, I think Katie's seen a bit of a resurgence in its comparative power.
And of course, Wolfie's got the mental health clinic sitting behind the bastion, which he res the bastion to protect it early. So do you think it's the mental health clinic is really integral to Wolfie's overall game plan here?
Well, the thing about games of Netrunner is they'll often come down to 1 or 2 credits. So there's that architect. So if Jeremy had been prodding R&D early, he may have run into that and let Wilfie get a score off early.
As Wilfie did say in his deck tech about this list, when they hit architect, it gains you a lot of tempo. He described it as sometimes gaining a whole other turn. So he's installed another piece of ice in front of what could eventually be a scoring server protecting his mental health clinic, and he's installed a boot camp, which Jeremy spent 3 credits and a click trashing earlier.
And he's had an access on R&D, which by the looks of it hit either a hedge fund or a restructure.
Yeah. And that's the other thing. You can also control the R&D accesses if you are worried about an early score. Yeah.
So I think Wilfie's sitting in exactly the sort of place he'd like to be, with no breakers on the board, no pressure, no multi-access.
Resing the boot camp to reduce the cost of the wall of static.
Yeah, so Wilfie doesn't really mind about having that ice known at this point because the mental health clinic is known, and so Jeremy knows what he's going for there if he wants to go and trash it. He's now put... So you'd assume that server is at some point going to become the IT department server.
Yeah.
What Wilfie likes to do with his deck is have a prickly piece of ice or a thorny piece of ice on the outside of every server so that the runner is punished for trying to force him to use his IT department tokens.
I have also seen him put that kind of ice sort of in the middle of, toward the end of the server as well. So after the opponent spent resources getting through the first 2, he then pumps the thorny ice like an architect or a toll booth, so it can't necessarily be broken.
The thing about having that at the front is that, particularly on those one ice servers, if it's a data pike like what he's got on HQ there, or an architect or a toll booth, you're taxing the runner for forcing you to spend your IT department tokens to keep them out. So that's
which is good. Yeah,
and that's part of what means that the runner's never going to be able to gain more advantage over you than what your IT department's giving you itself.
Going horizontally, that could be another mental health clinic.
Could be.
Perhaps another boot camp or Jackson.
Wolfie also likes to stack Jacksons in play. People may have noticed, so there could be another Jackson. But then he's not got a lot of cards in archives at the moment. He hasn't really had to use that first Jackson.
So it's an Adonis campaign.
So it's an Adonis.
So he's going to trash that one. Would you have trashed that there, considering the amount of money Wolfie already has, and he's got the trickle in coming from the mental health clinic?
Yeah, I mean, you've got to try and beat him at some point.
Yeah.
Jeremy's also got 9 credits sitting on that Katie Jones, so trying to deny Wolfie.
He's also trashed the Jackson there. Wolfie did not use it.
Yep.
And so with his turn, he's raising the Bastion on Archive. So
just developing that board, saving some money along the way.
Saving some money, which is good, yeah.
And this is something that a lot of players sort of, I think, underestimate, is when you're ahead on credits, using your resources efficiently is as important as when you've got barely any.
Yeah, of course.
And that's something that Wilfie's doing here. So that later on, when he does have a big turn where he's got to res a couple of toll booths, he's got as much at his disposal as he possibly can.
Yeah.
So he's installed over the mental health clinic here, and he's clicking up the department. So the department's in play, sitting behind 3 pieces of ice, and Jeremy's still got no breakers. Not looking great.
No. Okay, so here comes the IT department. So, what do you do in this situation? You try and get in there this turn? Wolfie's a reasonable person and a very good player, so you'd think that Wolfie's fairly confident that with that amount of credits and the 2 counters that Jeremy can't get in this turn.
Well, that may be the case, or he may just have another department sitting in hand, or he's got the boot camp in
bait him
play,
through there.
which means that he can fetch another one. So Jeremy has to go, and Wolfie knows that Jeremy has to go. He's got to use that KD. He's got to get a breaker and get into that server this turn, because if he doesn't, the department's going to grow in a way that he's not going to be able to keep up with. But if he does do that, Wolfie's still got access to another department through the boot camp.
Yeah.
And Jeremy's going to have to not only spend the resources he's got now, but also that Katie Jones that he spent 4 turns clicking up, which means he's not going to be able to recover that again in time to trash the second department. So Wolfie's got Jeremy in a really bad spot here.
Yeah. Jeremy's just having a think about it. And like he still has to be able to get his... okay, so he's modded in the lady. Not sure if he's going to have access to the second breaker that he may need. I'm sure Wolfie probably wouldn't have put another barrier in front of that server.
Okay, so that's a really good start because it's for Jeremy, because it's not cost him any credits. He hasn't had to play self-modifying code or tutor for it. Yeah, so unfortunately for him, he's hit one of those thorny pieces of ice, lost some resources, and still been kept out.
Yeah. I don't think he had anything in the bin to fetch out with the clone chip either. I think he probably just had to go for it. So if he's going to install, gaining a credit, and click the boot camp twice. So,
the department. Click the IT department twice.
Yeah. But department twice, yeah. Okay, so things not looking so good at the moment.
So if Jeremy can find himself a Codegate breaker and a David, then he might be okay here.
Yeah.
He also didn't click Katie last turn, I don't think.
He did not.
There's going to come a point very soon where Katie's just going to be outmatched by the IT department. Oh, so he's taken the money.
So maybe he's drawn something. What's he popping down? Okay, so that's the Zuki Master.
Okay.
And he's going to run for it now. So can Wilfie keep him out with the tokens? So he's going to boost the first one once. That's the data pike. So I think he can still break it. It's just going to cost him a pretty penny.
It is.
The Zuki Master is only one credit, so it's going to cost him 7, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, so it's giving it +4 strength. Yep. So it becomes a 6 strength 2 subroutine code gate.
It breaks through, and he's boosting the second one as well. So that ice
gets +3 strength.
Well, static, so it's now 6 strength as well. So he's going to have to use
3 credits and a lady counter.
And a lady counter. Using those lady counters to break 1 subroutine. Feels kind of gross sometimes. And the last one, he's just really bleeding the credits. Like Jeremy can definitely get in, but Wolfie's going to make him pay for it.
And then he's probably, we assume, either going to use that boot camp or he has another department in hand for next turn.
So do you think Jeremy goes and trashes the boot camp now? But I mean, even if he does, Wolfie can just trash it, use it in response. Yeah. Okay, so Jeremy didn't go, so he used the boot camp to res the toll booth. Yeah, and he's just got the other IT department in hand, so he's going to install click. And Jeremy's down to 6 credits, so it doesn't look like he can get in there.
And you'll notice that Wilfie's also down to 6 credits because he's used everything he had to res those ice that he had in play.
Yeah.
Which vindicates the line of play that he took earlier with drooping off that mental health clinic and also using the boot camp to save those credits.
I must say, not that boot camp has seen a whole lot of play, but when I have seen it played, people haven't been using the first ability, or you could say its secondary ability, which is the passive ability to res ice on your turn as often as Wolfie has been doing it here. So it's really good to see that.
Well, it has a disadvantage.
That card been doing that, yeah.
Like that ability has a downside, which is that you give him information. But in a deck like this, where your ice has another mode, that doesn't matter so much.
Yeah. Right. So, what are you doing if you're Jeremy in this situation? You're just trying to recoup your resources and develop your rig? Or do you have to just go for it again?
Well, he's got to go for it this turn or next turn. So he's developing his resources this turn, which is fine.
He's going to gain some credits, hedge fund, and then he's going for it again.
Right.
And it must be pretty painful because he knows that Wolfie has that boot camp there.
So that data pike just goes up to strength 4, which means it's going to cost 5 to get in, which is still so much.
And he's still costing 2 and a lady counter. And lady's going to be out of counters this turn too. So unless he's got a scavenge or
another program will do
another program, yeah.
That's not so much of a problem. But again, Jeremy's resource gain at this point is just going to get overtaken.
Yeah. And what's Wolfie doing? So he's not using the boot camp yet. Oh, no, he's using it at the start of his turn after he drew. Which is fair enough, because if he'd drawn the IT department, it would have been a waste.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, kept the boot camp out there, so... And Wolfie's down to 4 credits now, so he's going to install, getting a credit, click, click. And
yeah, so the thing is, once he gets up to 6 or 7 counters on the department,
it's
simply
very
so
bleak.
expensive to get in that he can then start developing his economy again.
Yeah.
With at least 1 click every turn.
Yeah. So Wolfie can really sort of just gain a credit, click, click, or install something, gaining the credit and click, click as well for the next few turns, and Jeremy can't really compete with it. I mean, we talk about how insane professional contacts feels, but it's probably not exactly what you need. At this point, you probably want some harder economy gain, burst economy. I haven't seen a prepaid voice pad or a lucky find, so maybe Jeremy isn't playing that sort of Kate list.
Yeah, I mean, this is the downside of Katie when you need repeatable economy.
Yeah, exactly right.
It's not going to do that for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
it also
really
didn't click her last turn either, so I mean, she's sort of just dead air at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, that's the strength of this. It's not Katie's fault. I mean, it's the strength of Wilfie's deck generally, is that it forces the runner to use those credits that they amass early in the game on big runs through this server to trash a department, which he can then get back so easily.
Of course.
Using boot camp, natural draw, Jackson, whatever.
At which point does Wilfie start developing his scoring server?
Once he's got that department up to between 6 and 10 counters, and then he can spend, one of those clicks. So if he's getting to the point where his turns are sort of install, click, click like this, one of those installs can be a new remote, and then the next turn he can go the second ice on that new remote, and then once he's got 2 ice, he can start placing agendas behind them.
Yeah.
Sitting on potentially 10, 12, 15 counters.
You still needs to be wary of cards like Inside Job or Femme Fatale.
Yeah.
I guess Femme would be quite good against this deck in a lot of ways as well.
Yep, absolutely.
Now, is it worth Jeremy poking R&D? I mean, he probably can't break the Architect and lose that tempo there, can he, even if Wolfie can't afford to res the ice, which is in front of it?
No.
Because he does have an R&D interface out.
Yeah, I mean, he could try and get a couple of points out of it.
Yeah. Okay, so he's installed over the lady with the data sucker, so he can get the lady back with the clone chip.
But the big problem with poking R&D and allowing them to fire Architect, that's just such a low value proposition.
Yeah, exactly right.
If there's agendas on top, they can get rid of them. You have to rely really on there being 3 agendas on top of R&D, which is very unlikely. That's if he wants to score 2. 2 agendas on top in the top 3 cards if he wants to score 1.
So what do you think Wolfie's building on archives there? Is it because the data suckers come out? So it's presenting a bit of a threat? It'll
be partly because of the data sucker. He just wants to even out those servers, I think. On archives there, it could be because he wants another Thorny and the run. So he might have a data pike or a toll booth. Just so that Jeremy can't be running to tax his department counters. Yeah.
Now, when you're testing against Wilfie or playing against him in a tournament with this deck, are you a bit like me in the sense that you get to a point where you kind of just sort of scoop up your cards because you can't once that IT department's got 10 or 15 counters on it, there's not a whole lot you can do, and you sort of got to face the facts.
Yes, I think once it's got above sort of 12 counters, there's absolutely nothing you can do. No. Most of the time, and you just got to scoop them up.
So if he's installed in his remote there, it could be another mental health clinic, which will help his drip economy, and tempt Jeremy to run there and trash it, which he probably won't want to do, seeing as he's already very, very tight with the resource.
We will say, I will say here that Jeremy's done a really good job of keeping his economy moving.
Yes, which is good. His contacts helps a lot.
Contacts helps, but he's got those daily casts coming down. He's got Katie Jones being clicked up consistently. He's really giving it a red hot go.
He's only missed 1 or 2 turns with the Katie, I think. That's it may have been because he drew cards like Hedge Fund.
Sure Gamble, yeah.
Sure Gamble, yeah. Okay, so it's Dirty Laundry, the remote. That's an Adonis.
I'm glad for Jeremy that wasn't a Jackson.
Yeah, yes, very much. It was a bit of a risky play, or even a boot camp, right?
Yeah.
But he didn't really have any other option, and just going for it. If that's an economy card, I think you sort of had to go for it there anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard for Jeremy here.
Yeah.
Looking at even breaking through that data pike with Zoo Keymaster once you're up to 8 counters on the department seems like a pretty hard thing to be doing. up to 10 now. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's Wilfie starting the development of what we can assume will be his scoring server. And once he's got maybe 2 or 3 ice on there, he's probably going to start to score. I like when I've watched Wilfie play, what I've noticed is a lot of the agendas do end up in his hand, and sometimes he's just sitting there with, 3 to 5 agendas in his grip, because once the ice is all out and he's shuffled a few times, he's drawn a bunch with Jackson, I think they're the safest place for them to be.
Yep.
A lot of the time, even with the architect there. Okay, so self-modifying Claude, better late than never.
Well, I'm not really sure it's going to do a lot here unless it's going to fetch a David.
There's still not a whole lot of decks playing David, just because it's not always necessary. But
well, it's 4 influence as well, which is
exactly right. Taller. Yeah, it's very tight.
But it is one of the best silver bullet solutions to this sort of IT department strategy.
But even then, it's still limited.
It is, but with 2 clone chips in play, it gets a lot better.
It's a bit easier. So he's going to install for neutral, click. So on 12 counters there, so he can pump anything by a significant amount, multiple times. And I mean, what's the point for the diminishing returns? It's much further away than it was before now, right?
Oh, Wilfie, if you think about how much it costs Wilfie to spend one of these counters now, so for Wilfie to go from 12 to 11 costs him 1 click to get back up again. But for Jeremy, what that means is 12 extra credits he has to spend on that data pike.
Yes, which is
a lot more than 1 click's worth. So once it's got to this point, he's simply outpacing Jeremy's economic gain by an astronomical
significant amount.
Yeah.
Every click he spends is 13 credits, 14 credits on Jeremy's side. Which is the power of the card, really.
Yep.
It certainly rewards you for investing in it.
It's taken him a lot of time to get here, not only with the IT department, but with setting up those servers early. But he's done it, and now he's reaping the rewards.
Yeah. Jeremy's just steadily clicking the contacts there. What are we going to see from him? I mean, it's very hard. Okay, so the parasite on the data pike.
So, I mean, the advantage of this is that now in 2 turns, it's gone.
And he had to discard his SMC there because he was over memory.
And you might sort of think to yourself, well, if you can just install another piece of ice and...
It will still slow Wilfie down. And he's only got 6 credits, so if he does install another piece of ice, he still has to be able to rest.
Exactly. Got to pay 1 to install it, being engineering the future, if he's willing to trash the data pike.
Yeah. So it's installing there. And he's going to upgrade his die. 13. Okay, so start Jeremy's turn. The parasite puts in its work.
I mean, even here,
it's
got to the point where it's becoming, even that many credits for Lady. So, if the parasite trashes the data pike and Jeremy then wants to try and get past that wall of static, it's still costing him so much to boost up his Lady.
Yeah. Not to mention he doesn't even have the Lady in play at the moment. So there's he's running the remote server. That's an Enigma, and that's strength 15?
Yeah.
Yes. So you sort of just lose the click and bounce here. You don't want to spend 15 credits only to walk into a... Wolfie's still got 5 credits, so it could be another data pike. What do you do here? Do you bounce or do you pay it and continue?
Well, your click's definitely not worth the amount that it's going to cost you to break it, is it?
No. It looks like he's just bounced.
Yeah.
Draw with contacts. And pumped Katie. Was that a Desperado he discarded there?
I think it was.
Sure, it would have been better maybe a little earlier in the game. It's not going to do a whole lot now. So Wolfie's losing the data pike. Oh, no, he's installing over it. Okay.
Yeah. And he's going quite low here.
He is. So, I mean, he's down to 3 credits, so that could be an Enigma, though. But really, any piece of ice, even like an ice wall or a paper wall at this point.
Well, another data pike is going to be the same as the first data pike, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly right. Well, any piece of ice with an end the run subroutine, doesn't matter how low its base strength is going to do the work for him here.
And that's one of the really interesting things about this deck design is that most of the ice are hard in the runs, which is why you've got more uncommon ice like data pike and bastion being played.
Yeah, which is good. I think it's really interesting, and Wolfie, as he as you discussed in the episode where we did the deck tech on this list, he spent a lot of time developing the ice suite. I remember he was originally playing a lot of Bioroids, and he decided against that due to the issue it had.
Sorry to interrupt you,
Lady's
we've
back.
got Lady coming in off the clone chip there, which is potentially a big play. Jeremy's been working up to that for quite a while. Will we see the money coming off Katie? He's
still got 17 credits. And how many he's got, Katie? He's got 6 counters on Katie.
Yes, that's 18.
Yeah. Is that enough to get through? I mean, Wolfie's only got 5 credits at the moment. I mean, it sounds bad to say, but you're sort of prolonging the inevitable, even if you do run through there. It's realistically very expensive. And you still have to trash the IT department as well.
Yep.
And hope that Wolfie doesn't just have another one, you know. So Eli, so you can click through that one, which is, so I think that's the only Bioroid Wolfie kept in there.
Yeah.
He may not, yeah. Wolfie's just checking the bin there. There's still a clone chip in play. And, okay, so it looks like he's pumping. He's got through the wall of static. He's got through the E-line. He's pumping the wall of static.
So he must have had clicks to click through.
I would think so, yeah. But, I mean, I think Wolfie's still happy to let his opponent spend those
absolutely
very valuable clicks at this point. So, resing the Eli is still fine there. And Jeremy's thinking about the wall of static. Oh, no, he's just bounced and maybe just getting Wilfred to spend the credit, the counter on the IT department to keep him out.
And again, I mean, if we think about the idea of having a thorny ice that tax the runner on the outside of a server, even Eli at this point is doing that.
Eli's a good point, yeah.
It's taxing 2 clicks just to be able to force Wilfie to spend a counter. But everything that Wilfie's doing with his ice in this game is about reversing the 4 to 3 click advantage that the runner has.
Of course, yes. Okay, so it looks like Jeremy's running again. First click. So he's run again, first click through the Eli, and he's hit the wall of static. So he's in actually a worse situation than he was last turn, because now the wall of static is actually stronger than it was when Wolfie went down to 12 counters the previous turn.
And Wolfie can give...
And he's bounced again and used his last click to pump Katie. So it was an interesting sort of play.
I think he's really just trying to tax those counters now. He's realised that if it gets much higher than this, he's actually never going to be able to get through.
It's true, but he's spending 3 clicks to Wilfie's 1.
He is. It may be more worthwhile him looking to R&D.
Yeah. That's true, because Wilfie's... he's sort of made his credits back up now. But that architect, you really don't want to walk into that and not be able to break it. And let's not forget that Jeremy doesn't have a sentry breaker in play at the moment, so Wolfie may not even have to pump the architect. So maybe that's why he's avoiding running R&D.
With 15 counters on the IT department, it's going to be so hard for Jeremy to even break one piece of ice.
Yeah. Okay. Is this a run on archives?
Looks like it, yeah.
Looks like it, and Wolfie's letting it happen, so obviously nothing in there. Got some, what must be irrelevant ice there.
And we've got a precious lady counter being spent. Yeah, so Jeremy's really just sort of trying his luck wherever he can here, hoping to try and snipe an agenda.
Yeah. So he's going to contact.
So these are 35-minute rounds, so these guys are getting reasonably close to time at this point.
Yeah, exactly right.
And Wilfie was the number 1 seed.
Wolfie was the highest seed. So for those of you who don't know, in double elimination, at the end of the 35-minute or the allotted time, it's the highest agenda points wins after each additional turn. And if it's tied for agenda points, and that includes 0, the highest seed wins the match. So Wolfie finished top of the Swiss, which is obviously a very good result, but not so good for his opponent, if that's where he's going here. So it looks like Jeremy has modded in the R&D interface, so maybe he's just going for the last ditch with... because, at this point, getting close to the end of time, if he can just get even one agenda, or just, 1 point more than Wilfie, he can still win the match when they go to time.
And he's still got those 21 credits sitting on Katie there, so he's probably just thinking he's got to give it one go.
Wilfie just spent his whole turn clicking up the IT department. It says 18 counters on it now. Yes.
So, I mean, the first counter is going to give something plus 18 strength. The second counter is going to give something plus 17 strength. I mean, it's just phenomenal.
It is. And if that's the same piece of ice...
That's 35 credits.
So let's see what Jeremy's doing. Maybe he's just going to go for the last ditch against R&D, but, I mean... Again, like, even with that architect still there, Wilfie can just, get rid of those agendas if you needed to.
So I should clarify my maths there. The first one's going to give it plus 18, which will then go down to plus 17 when the second count is spent. But still, 34 credits.
It's just, Jeremy's going to contacts and... Like I was going to say, maybe even a Maker's Eye, but you don't really want to spend your 2 credits to play a run event at this point.
Well, he just doesn't have enough credits to be able to get through anything.
Well, he's got a Dirty Laundry in hand, I think, and a self-modifying code, so he could get out the Century Breaker that he needs, but, I mean, a lot of these lists play a Mimic. Oh, Sharpshooter. Okay, so that's interesting.
So he's possibly hoping that's an Ichi on R&D?
It could be, yeah. I mean, that's definitely save him the point, but, I mean, Wolfie can just not res it, right?
He can also buff the strength.
He could.
In which case, Sharpshooter becomes just as expensive as any other icebreaker.
Yeah, exactly right. So it's a new server there, so that could be a Jackson. Maybe another mental health clinic. Wolfie's still reasonably low on credits. But I think he's feeling pretty comfortable now. I think he knows Jeremy can't get in anywhere, and he maybe just be stalling for the timed win because he knows he's highest seed.
I mean, despite the fact that Jeremy has been doing quite well at developing his economy.
Of course, no, he's playing as well as he could. It's just a very difficult situation to be in, right?
He doesn't have, he just doesn't have the ability to tax Wilfie's IT department counters whilst developing. So he's been presented with a choice. He's chosen to keep himself afloat, but that's allowing Wilfie to really run away with those IT department counters. Yeah.
Okay, so that's clone shipping at the Parasite. Onto the
data pike on HQ.
Data pike.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, that'll get rid of the data pike, but
yeah, I mean, the problem still at this point is getting through
one
piece
the toll
of
booth.
ice.
Yeah, one piece of ice, not just 2. I mean, I think it's a safe bet to say that Wilfie has more than one agenda in hand at this point. He's drawn a lot of cards, discarded a lot of cards, which we saw were not agendas earlier.
I think Jeremy might be over his memory limit here as well.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
Oh, he is.
Oh well.
That's unfortunate. No one noticed. I'm guessing at this point, but this close to time, I don't think it's going to end up mattering. So he's running. He's pumping the toll booth, losing through to toll booth. So that toll booth is currently strength 23, I think. So, I mean that's more credits than what Jeremy has. I mean, he still hasn't used Katie to get all the credits off, so maybe he's not planning on getting in there, but he's just.
Well, he's just losing himself 3 credits in order to tax 1 department counter, which again is that ratio that we're talking about. Yeah. It's all in Wilfie's favour.
Uh-huh. So now he's running somewhere else trying to get him back. So he's run there, click through Eli.
So if we look at that turn, he's spent 3 credits.
And 3 clicks.
And his whole turn.
Or 4 clicks, yeah.
To cost Wilfie 2 department counters.
And Wilfie's just going to install over the data pack. Do you think Wilfie's really scared? I mean, you think he's still playing around inside job at this point? Is that why he's scared of the one ice going through there?
I mean, possibly. Like, if he's grouping 4 agendas, it's very easy for.
Yeah, and I suppose you still have to worry about the David just coming down if he just leaves the toll booth there.
Absolutely, and HQ interface is also a thing. So it could be HQ interface into inside job. And inside job is very unlikely out of a shaper, but
I think so. But I mean, Wolfie knows that he's got to hedge his bets.
Yeah, I mean, really, the downside for him.
He wouldn't take the risk.
Is nothing at this point for putting extra ice there.
I think Jeremy just drew a leg work, so he might be thinking about whether or not he can get into HQ, but. Looking so good, and we're getting very close to time here, I think, as well. He hasn't checked either of those face down agendas. Do you think maybe face down servers?
Knowing
So,
Wilfie as well as I do not think that after spending that many clicks investing in an IT department, he'd play out naked agendas.
oh, of course not. But I'm just saying it'd be good for information for Jeremy. I mean, he was so happy and willing to be trashing the assets and everything earlier on.
That's true, but that was
And
mostly before there was an IT department in play, which meant
that's
that
true.
his
Yeah.
clicks were not
But
as
now it's
important.
going to. Oh, we're talking about it, and he goes, "It was mental health clinic. It's dirty laundering there." And Wolfie hasn't res that for a while. What do you think that may be?
Not entirely sure.
Probably couldn't afford it. He couldn't afford it. Yeah, I mean, he was turning on dirty laundries for his opponent.
He perhaps didn't want to give Jeremy the maximum hand
And-
size.
Looks like Jeremy's taking the money off Katie, so he's planning to do something this turn. If it was a legwork in hand, maybe he's just going to go for it. So he's got, what's it, 64 credits? 44 credits.
Yeah, I'm not,
Still a lot,
sure
but
that 44 is going to be enough.
no, even 3 clicks of that IT department will put that out of range. I think here, yeah, it's a legwork, which is a fine, but I certainly think it's a last-ditch effort. Because Wilfred could, I mean, he could just not res the first piece of ice. Is that what he's doing? Maybe not resing the first one and then pumping the second one a whole bunch.
Yeah, so this is the thing.
So,
I
wow,
mean,
he used 9. Did he use 9 credits then? 9 clicks from the 9 counters from the IT department, from 18 to 9. So he really, yeah, and looked like, yeah, Wolfie's revealed his cards.
so that must have been
And,
Jeremy's final turn, I think. That,
I think
that would
so, yeah.
be why
That's why it
Wilfie's
was
done
called.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so I mean, what do you think of that game?
I would have been interested to see it play out to its conclusion, to
Yeah.
see whether Wilfie could set up a remote.
I'm sure he was able to at that point. I don't think he would have used 9 counters on that IT department. He had the server there with the Enigma on it and another face down piece of ice. He was very close to scoring, I'd say.
Yeah, so it's likely that it would have been a score out. It's unfortunate for our viewers, I guess, that they had to see something come to a stalemate rather than seeing agendas being scored. But hopefully
Yeah.
you all enjoyed seeing the IT department deck at work and
Yeah.
how well it can really wedge the runner and tax their resources and their clicks in such a way that there's no good play for them. So yeah.
Exactly right. So stick with us, guys. We've got more of the Melbourne 2015 regionals coverage coming up right now.